Welcome to the channel, Cheating Secrets. Sometimes an event happens so far beyond your imagination that a person has no choice but to simply say, "What the hell?" That happened to me recently. My name is Jim, if you're curious, and it all went down at a party that turned my world inside out and upside down. I had never once doubted my wife's love or loyalty, not even for a second. Jerry and I had been a couple since high school. I was her first lover, I know that for a fact. But after 12 years of marriage, I discovered I hadn't been the only one, even though she's still the love of my life. We were never too adventurous in the bedroom, and it wasn't for lack of trying on my part, it was her reluctance to explore new experiences. I always wanted to experiment more with my wife, but I loved her so deeply that I accepted what we had in bed. Let me expand on that last point a bit, the reason will become clear later in the story. One evening, shortly after we got married, we had a lovely dinner out. A little dancing, a bit of romance, and a couple of bottles of wine. It was the perfect evening to continue the celebration back home, in the bedroom. I held Jerry close and kissed her with a passion that felt rare and timeless, the kind that makes the world pause, just for a moment. As our lips met, everything else faded away. When our tongues touched, it felt like the universe aligned, and to this day, I've never experienced anything so intense. That night, everything seemed just right. She responded warmly to my touch, melting into me in a way that made me believe this could be the night we explored a deeper level of intimacy. I kissed her neck, gently tracing my lips along her skin, savoring every second. For the first time, we stepped beyond our usual boundaries, and she welcomed the attention with unexpected intensity. It was also the first time either of us had ventured into certain kinds of intimacy. I hoped that in sharing something new with her, we could both feel more connected, maybe even open a door to mutual exploration. But when it came time for her to respond in kind, something shifted. She paused. I can't do this, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling, eyes filled with uncertainty. "Please, baby, it's okay, I know you can," I whispered, hoping to reassure her. She tried, but quickly pulled away, overwhelmed. Covering her mouth, she rushed to the bathroom and locked the door. I sat there, stunned, wondering if I had crossed a line. Was it something I did? Through the door, she told me it wasn't about me. She said the thought alone made her feel uncomfortable, not physically, but emotionally. She felt it crossed a line she wasn't ready to approach, fearing it might change the way I saw her. That night marked the end of those particular attempts in our relationship. While she enjoyed the attention I gave her, she couldn't bring herself to return it in that way. For her, it felt too raw, too vulnerable, even shameful. She feared I might lose respect for her if she ever went through with it. So our life went on, we were living a good life. The manufacturing business I had started was thriving, getting better and better with each passing year. That crazy little company that began in my garage had grown into a major player with a contract from the Department of Defense. In fact, we had become almost the only client of Jerry's family-owned electronics supply company. Joe, Jerry's father, was finally seeing a return on the business he had poured his entire life into. Although I was never Joe's favorite, he seemed satisfied that, because of me, he had finally achieved success. Jerry's mother was a devout churchgoer. I used to call her the church lady. She was so self-righteous, it was as if her words came straight from God, at least, according to her. Jerry listened to far too much of her mother's nonsense, if you ask me, but for some reason, we managed to avoid each other most of the time. Now that you've got a bit of the picture, let's quickly get to the reason I'm telling this story. It was a Friday evening, and we had invited some friends over for dinner. 3 other couples we usually spent time with were coming over for a night of food and drinks. The meal was fantastic. Jerry did an amazing job with dinner. After eating, the guys, as usual, headed toward the pool table in the game room, while the ladies were happy to stay at the kitchen table, sipping wine and chatting, or whatever it is they do. I had run out of beer, so I made my way to the kitchen to grab another one. As I approached the door, I heard the women laughing, like a flock of hens. I hesitated for a second before walking in, and stepped back momentarily to see what was so funny. Sandy, one of the wives, was demonstrating to the other women the proper technique for giving pleasure, using a banana. I stood there, unseen by them, completely intrigued. And yes, I was tense, and honestly, enjoying the view far more than I probably should have. My attention was completely fixed on Sandy and the way she was instructing the other women. I could only dream that Jerry might later use this newly acquired knowledge on me, but deep down, I knew that would never happen. Sandy handled that piece of fruit with impressive skill, managing to take nearly half of it down her throat before gagging slightly and gasping for air. The other women seemed fascinated by the display, just like I was, but not my dear Jerry. Jerry looked surprised, but not particularly impressed by Sandy's technique. Without saying a word, Jerry reached for a banana, pulled one from the bunch, and began to slowly take it in, all the way to the stem. She didn't flinch, didn't gag. It seemed like she was controlling it with the muscles in her throat. She slowly pulled it out with a soft sound, as it slid effortlessly from her mouth. A stunned Sandy exclaimed, "Good Lord, girl, where the heck did you learn to do that?" "You could have knocked me over with a feather," when I heard Jerry calmly reply, "Practice. Lots and lots of practice." And just like that, all the tension in me vanished. I had just witnessed the most unexpectedly sensual thing Jerry had ever done, and to me, that meant everything had just changed. As I walked into the kitchen, the words were already leaving my mouth. "Well, that was impressive. But I wonder who she practiced on. It certainly wasn't her husband," I said, not addressing anyone in particular. Jerry whipped her head around to see me standing in the doorway. "Jim, I can." "Yeah, I'll bet you can." "Ladies, I think the party's over," I said, as they all stared at me in stunned silence. "Wait a minute, Jim. This isn't what it looks like, and the girls aren't going anywhere," Jerry said, trying to keep her allies close. "Fine, they can stay. But I want you out of here in 10 minutes, I said firmly. "Jim, you can't be serious," Jerry exclaimed. "Get out. Go to your damn mother's house. Is that clear enough for you?" Still refusing to move, she tried to continue. "I can explain, this is all just a big misunderstanding," Jerry blurted out. I cut her off mid-sentence. "I think I understand perfectly well, my dear professional wife, and yet I'm not the one benefiting from her talents." By that time, the other guys had gathered around to see what was going on. Everyone, except Jonah, a detail both I and Pam, his wife, noticed. She jumped up from the table to look for him and found him still in the game room. I watched the unfolding scene, already wondering what other surprises might be waiting for me ahead. Pam looked him straight in the eye, her voice sharp with anger. "So that's why you wanted me to learn how to deep throat," she hissed. "Now Pam, just," was all he managed to get out before her left fist landed squarely in his groin. Jonah collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, clearly in serious pain. "Don't even think about coming home." "Not now, not ever," Pam said coldly, turning sharply to leave. I turned to the rest of the group and said, "Well, that was a fun evening. I think it's time for all of you to go," I said, putting extra emphasis on the word all. Then I turned and left Jerry standing there, mouth agape. I told her that if she had ever been willing to do that for me, I would have taken her little secret to the grave. Moving slowly, I walked into one of the empty rooms and locked the door behind me. Sleep wouldn't come, and I lay there thinking about how everything had led to this point. I also tried to imagine what life would be like without Jerry. The next morning, I discovered the house was empty. I made some coffee and had toast. Before I could truly start feeling sorry for myself, the doorbell rang. It was the church lady. "Oh great, it's you," slipped out of my mouth before I could stop it. "I've come for some of Jerry's things. If you'd be so kind as to step aside, I'll collect them and be out of your way as quickly as possible," she said in a rehearsed tone. "Well then, allow me to assist you. That might speed up your highness's departure," I replied with a mock bow, gesturing for her to come inside. I followed her into the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase for her to pack. She began gathering Jerry's belongings in silence while I watched. When she finished loading the suitcase, she hesitated. Clearly, something was on her mind. And with her usual bluntness, it didn't take long before I found out what it was. "Jim, I know this is all just a big misunderstanding. What would it take for you to come to your senses?" she asked, as if nothing had happened. Thinking quickly, I answered plainly, "Pleasure." Her face tried to mask the disgust she clearly felt toward me. "Well, I'm sure Jerry," she began, but I cut her off, already calculating how best to spin the moment. "Not from Jerry. From you," I said firmly. She adjusted her dress and took a deep breath. "If that's what it takes to bring you back to reason." I stopped her cold. I knew it. "I know you too well. It was you all along. You're the one who told her I'd see her as an adulteress. You hypocritical old witch. In your eyes, it's fine for a woman to do that with another man, just not with her husband. You're the one who filled her head with all that garbage," I snapped. "What's so wrong with a woman wanting the same things a man does? You all sleep around behind your wives' backs. So why can't we have a little fun too?" she asked defiantly. I was stunned. "I couldn't care less what you and your idiot husband do, but for the record, I've never cheated on Jerry. Not all men are like the ones you're describing." "Oh please, you can't be serious. You just asked me for pleasure. Who's the hypocrite now?" "I asked to see just how far you were willing to go in this little charade. I'd rather stick it in an alligator's mouth than let you anywhere near me. I think it's best you leave now. Tell Jerry to expect a call from my lawyer," I said as I grabbed the suitcase and headed to the door. On Monday morning, when I got to work, I went straight to the loading dock. I instructed the foreman to load the last shipment we had received from Joe's company back onto the truck and send it straight back. Just as I expected, Joe was on the phone within the hour that he demanded to know why the shipment had been returned. I simply told him I was being overcharged and would be doing business with a new supplier, then I hung up. I left instructions with my secretary to tell Joe I was busy when he showed up, and it wouldn't take him long to get there. Sure enough, about half an hour later, I heard him in the reception area. I leaned back in my chair, kicked my feet up, and let the bastard sweat. 3 hours later, I walked out of my office and headed home for the day. Joe immediately jumped to his feet, trying to get my attention. "Jim, I need to talk to you." "I'm busy right now, Joe." "Talk to my secretary, maybe she can fit you in next week," I said coldly. "Jim, I'm begging you, don't do this to me. We're family, Jim," he pleaded. "Cut the crap, Joe. I'm not part of your family, I never was, if we're being honest. I only kept doing business with you because of Jerry. I paid at least 20% more than I should have, just because you were her father. But Jerry screwed me over, and now I have no reason to keep paying you a premium," I said flatly. "Jim, please, I'll be ruined. I spent every last cent just trying to keep up with your demand. For old time's sake, I'll cut the price by 10%, just please don't do this," he begged. "For old time's sake. Give me a break. Now that I see how your family treats respect and loyalty, why the hell should I? You're all liars and frauds, every last one of you. You and your family have always looked down on me. I owe you nothing," I snapped. Then I hesitated for a moment. After all, business is business. I'm a fair man, Joe. You give me your lowest price, and if it's right, we'll do business. That's all I'm asking for, Jim. "Thank you, I'll give you the price you want," he said with a sigh of relief. I could have, maybe even should have, made the old fool grovel, but that would have just been cruel. I had exposed them all for who they really were. I was done with it, and honestly, it felt good to be free of them. All of them, except Jerry, of course. Her betrayal still hurt deeply, but I knew I could never forgive her, not for what she did, and not for how foolish she'd been. She called me the next day to thank me for what I'd done for Joe. She started saying how sorry she was, but I cut her off and hung up. I just wasn't in the mood to hear her excuses, or to even think about the possibility that she was betraying me all over again. Our divorce went smoothly as something like that can go. Jerry accepted my rather generous settlement without a single objection. I moved on and started dating again. It was fun exploring new sexual boundaries, everything, that is, except that particular pleasure. Every time a woman's lips get close to it, it retreats like it's hiding. I found that, even after everything that happened, I still think about Jerry sometimes. I loved her, and that kind of love isn't easy to forget. That's why I still send her gifts on all the usual occasions, Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, so she doesn't forget either. Yes, I sent her a dozen ripe yellow bananas, so she never forgets. Bye to you all. And once again, the same old story, shy with the husband, wild with the lover. Thank you for being with us. And if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like, it helps new stories come to light.